All right, y'all, thanks for being here. We're going to go ahead and get started. And I'm real excited about this topic today because it's all about decluttering. And Celeste Kaufman, who's a licensed professional counselor, has just so generously donated her time to talk to us about this. But decluttering, as she's going to talk to us about, can be in a lot of different ways. It's not necessarily this pile of junk that's sitting on my desk and I need to reorganize that. So I'm just excited to listen to her today, share her insight on this topic and how it can apply to a lot of different things. So thank you for being here. Make sure you signed in. There should be a sign-in sheet going around, and of course, our hello to our virtual audience as well. And I'm going to go ahead and just turn it over to her, and then I'll be back afterwards with some quick announcements.
Okay.
Thank you for coming. Let's give her
More
lions.
Sure, it's so good to see some familiar faces today. I'm glad you guys are here. Am I in a good spot here?
You are.
Okay.
Yes.
I brought my associates here in the back. This is my director of technologies, I guess.
Oh.
I homeschool my children, and so every chance they get to come on UNA, they like to because they are excited to join in. So
We're
here
glad to
with
have
UNA. Yes, we were excited. That was kind of a last minute addition. They decided. Like Jackie said, my name is Celeste Kaufman. I'm a licensed professional counselor at in downtown. So this is the website address, and we brought cards and stuff. We are at the corner of Walnut and Dr. Hicks. They're by the Express Oil Change, Auto Dock. Most people know us from that area in the Wendy Murphy building. So it was just a fun trip over here to be on campus.
And that's a new location for y'all?
It is. We've been there right at 2 years.
Oh, okay.
It is. So yeah, we were downtown, much closer within walking distance, but we have had people walk from UNA to get to us. We're always like, here's your water, and we're very, we have just a ton of UNA and those that come to us. So I always do like to bring up that counseling and visits with a psychiatrist are 100% covered by UNA's insurance. So not even just with us, but this is with any counseling or psychiatric service, emotional wellness that you do. No copay and no visit limit, meaning you just walk in and just come as much as you need to for as long as you need to. It's a really good benefit of UNA to have. If you've never tried to use it, of course, that extends to your family if they're on your plan. So it's an easy. We always like when somebody comes into the office from UNA because I don't have to say, oh, I know it covers. So we just write you guys down real quick. That's nice. So today we're going to talk about clutter and mental wellness. I'm going to go at it from maybe a little bit different angle than what you see before. Hopefully, I know we've all read those organization books on how to or just only keep what brings you joy. And I really do see in our practice a lot that there are some emotional strongholds with decluttering, and that decluttering can keep emotional strong on you. So that's what we're going to do. So I want to start with asking, and I'm just a super jump in at any time. The folks that have been here before, they know I'm like that. But if you had anything you wanted to mention so I'm curious to know what areas of your home or your office or your life tend to accumulate clutter. Brave to say.
I'll jump in and say, mail.
Oh my gosh, yes, mail. Yes. Especially during tax season.
Yes.
It just feels like every 5 minutes there's something. I get it taken care of, and then there's something else that comes, in with the mail. That's definitely one. In fact, we have had, I've had clients bring in a garbage sack of mail. And to literally just be like, I can't do it. It gives me heart palpitations. And, we'll sit there and go, okay, well, out all the LL Bean catalogs. All those can go in the trash right away. We've already made a huge dent, What else? What other places accumulate clutter?
My basement.
The basement.
When we clean house,
We put down in the basement.
Down in the
And
basement.
eventually you gotta go through all that in the basement, but we can do that later.
Yes, and it just tends to creep, doesn't it? The basement is like we're like a gecko in the basement. We just expand to however much space we tend to have. We moved out of a home with a basement last summer, and boy, it was like, I didn't even know this was down here. I don't know if we have a whole other couch we've got to, get rid of and stuff. So yeah. What about cars? Anybody stuff in your car? If you're in a season of working from car, or if you have small kids, or if you have parents that you're taking back and forth to appointments, I feel like it's just really easy to just like drop things in. Our car was kind of a mess last night. I carry a laundry bag just to fill up with things that have to go back into the house. We were in Birmingham yesterday, and it was we had just a lot of clutter by the time we got home. So yeah, all those are some different places. So why does an area become cluttered? What kind of do you think causes a place to become cluttered?
They don't have a home.
No home. The mail, that's a good one too with the mail, because it doesn't always have, you think I'll have to deal with this later, or I'll get to this when I get to it. I think the basement is like a creature of habit. It usually is for me. It's just the area becomes stuff down there, right? So we'll talk about some of the emotional reasons. So these are some of the reasons that we see that people get cluttered in their homes or in their offices. A lot of times it's that you have too much stuff for your space. Do you guys know Katie Wadsworth that owns the More Space place in Florence? Katie's, that's what she always says. It's really not usually that you need more bins, it's that you need less things in here. So that's the number one. Another reason that an area of your home, your car, or office can become cluttered is if you're somewhat isolated, and we do see people with mental health struggle to get isolated in that way, and sometimes that clutter can be, as you said, something is going right with them. We said there's sometimes no system for dealing with what comes in. There's a lot coming in. So there's certain seasons of life, right, that a lot would be coming in, right? New baby is always one. I told somebody with a new baby recently, there's only this much stuff for 2 years. And then all of a sudden you just get rid of all this, the bouncer and the baby bath and all that stuff all the time. And then sports equipment starts coming. Clutter does attract clutter, and some of the things that I want to focus on today are feeling overwhelmed and depression. So a lot of people, I put this in here, a lot of people don't actually know what depression looks like. It's something in our about so much that we that people don't know it, but I wanted to kind of cover that today. So the DSM-4, right, is the book that we use to diagnose clients that come in. Your doctor would use this, we would use it. But if somebody comes in and we're suspecting depression from them, we would look at, number one is a sad mood or a loss of pleasure or interest plus a loss of so it always starts with a sad mood or a loss of pleasure or interest. So loss of pleasure or interest is when maybe they used to be a runner and that just doesn't sound like any fun. They maybe used to be social. They just think it's not really worth it to go with friends to have dinner. And the other things we look, once we see those, then the other things we look at will be an appetite change, so eating more or less than usual. An energy change from what you have. If you're normally a low energy person, that doesn't necessarily indicate depression, but if it's different, what you normally say. A sleep change, sleeping too much or sleeping not quite enough, or a mix of both. Depression. Some feelings of guilt and worthlessness, and that is where we see the decluttering show up a lot. We have a lot of folks come into our office that feel really guilty about the state that their home has become, or the state that their calendar has become cluttered up with things that they are missing or appointments they're missing. And then there's guilt that comes with that. Nobody wants to be my roommate anymore because this is such a mess. We hear that from our students. And this is beyond just like I feel bad, my place is kind of messy today. This is more of a persistent, difficult, and it can feel like to other people in their lives, well, just get a trash can and throw away all the trash that's in here and put all the books on the shelves. And sometimes that works. Concentration issues are another thing that we see in sometimes in ADD that cross over each other, and so there's this lack of concentration on the project, not being able to get started, not feeling enough of a path forward to do that. And then, of course, with depression, if you were to have thoughts of death and dying, sometimes that will look even as just be better off I didn't wake up tomorrow. That sometimes. So those are times when we really look at what the symptom of decluttering can sometimes be like emotion. And clutter and depression do go hand in hand. There's that difficulty lot of people saying that hopelessness is what we want. It's just gonna get this way again. I always do this. I can never get things together. Being overwhelmed, no energy, so that energy deficit of thinking, I can't even possibly pick up the meal off the counter and put it in one bite. And then, of course, that worthlessness and hopelessness. A lot of people pass a moral judgment on cluttering. Feel they let things get this bad. Sleeping so much. We do tend to have folks that will sleep so much that we just discover they're not getting anything done because they are in the bed so many hours a day. And then I see more and more depression is in social media. I started seeing this, that's things started. First, I had a client once, but I was asking, what are you doing during the week? Can you give me kind of a time study of why we can't tackle some of these hygiene and cleaning tasks? And when we looked at it, 100 hours of YouTube and social media a week. So that to me was like, okay, red flag. That's beyond just I'm on my phone a lot. That kind of goes beyond. And then also not enough nourishment to think act. If I ever have trouble making a decision, I usually then say, when was the last time I had something to eat? Because sometimes I will kind of get in this, should I run home and let the dog out first, or should I run over to Walmart and grab that milk that we need first, or should I stay on campus and do, and sometimes that's what that looks like too, not having quite enough nourishment. So I'm going to talk about one that we use in our office a lot that goes with decluttering, which is behavior activation therapy, BAT. I don't know why we don't put that would be easier, but we say BAT instead. So BAT is something that we use. It really resonates with me a lot as a therapist because I'm one of those more practical therapists. Some people are really, really, I don't know, maybe they're just brainier than I am, but they can go into this really cerebral technique. And for me, I love BAT for a couple of reasons. There's 3 principles of BAT that really do relate to the decluttering. So one of the 3 is that your behavior can directly affect your mood, better or worse. Does that sound right? Most likely, right? Okay. So if you're in a really meh mood, what would be some things you can think of that would make it worse? Not that you would do these behaviors, but other people,
I guess if somebody's already feeling like that, like if they don't get up and take a shower or go outside or whatever they just start.
Like isolate, seclude, stay in your bed. I'm just gonna, what about things that we eat? I'm feeling great. I have a real tendency to go super party when I'm not, when I'm having kind of a meh day. I have to really talk myself out of that Chick-fil-A cookie that day because that would make me feel so much better. And it might for a minute, but then later I'm kind of thinking like, okay, now I've had just 300 empty calories that didn't really help me with it. What about something if you were having kind of a meh day that would help you feel better? Or help anyone feel better?
Exercise.
Yeah.
Exercise, moving.
I was gonna say.
Yeah. What else?
Socializing, call
Yep.
someone that
Socializing
you're
can.
yeah.
Yeah. Did you know that research shows us that people have better mental health outcomes if they see another person before noon? They don't have to interact with them. It doesn't have to be somebody that they know. But when we study, and I think studies was done with elderly folks in the UK, and if they did not see the mailman before noon, or they did not drive, through downtown and see, the Rivertown crowd walking around out there, they had worse mental health outcomes, which is so interesting. So that's another thing that we tell people sometimes, our students on campus. I say the worst thing that you could do would be to stay in that residence hall. You need to get whatever it takes, get the sweatpants on, go stand down by the main market, whatever you need to do, just something to get out and see another person. Poke your head out the hall and see if you see anybody out there, and that automatically will help. We see this sometimes with teenagers. In therapy, we call it depressing as a verb, like yourself. And my mom says, oh yeah, I am depressing. I get it, but not in that way. But if you think about when you were a teenager, maybe and had that first kind of big breakup, and then you wanted to sit and listen. And you see music and hear the, don't wash your hair, and that was kind of that's what it always makes me think of. There are things that we can do that make our mood better, and things that we do that make our work definitely worse. That's one tenet of the 18. The other one is that people usually wait to act until you get a swing of motivation. Does that sound familiar? Usually wait to do something until you get the motivation, right? So where we see this is with people at work who they know there's a project due and it's coming, how to get it, and you're waiting on it from them because you've been waiting on it and you can't do your part till they finish theirs. I have to work for myself because I can't stand to wait. I'm so impatient. And then they're just waiting for that inspiration. I had somebody that was a neighbor like that, and she just, I'm not going to start until I get inspiration or whatever. And I'm thinking, you just have to get started on this. You can't wait. You're gonna fail your class. So people do usually wait, especially with decluttering. We'll see people kind of wait and say, when I feel that spring cleaning energy, when it gets a little warmer, or when I love this one, when I have someone coming over, I'll just do the crazy clean right before. And so that's the second tenet of the 18. And then the third is that activating, so doing an action, activating first before you feel like it will help you feel better faster. Think about that for a second. Activating first, doing the thing that you're motivated to do first, motivating to do the thing. I think we know that kind of in our head, but it's you have to sort of watch it play out a little bit. So I'm going to talk about a couple of examples, but BAT uses something we call the vicious cycles. And the vicious cycles kind of go this way. So if you or someone are feeling sad or anxious, guilty, embarrassed, what you do might be some of these things. Avoid dealing with your clutter if you have it. Stay in your bed. Don't have anybody over. Make excuses to not let people in. And then what that leads to is feeling more sad, more anxious, more depressed, more guilty. So that's the first vicious cycle of BAT. And then there's a second vicious cycle with these areas. So negative events. So let's say a negative event is friends didn't invite you somewhere. This is one that can put our college students into a spiral sometimes. Friends didn't invite you somewhere, so how do you feel? Maybe sad or embarrassed. So what you do, avoid your clutter, don't clean up, don't have visitors, don't go out on your own. That leads to being sad or embarrassed again. So that's your first vicious cycle. And then it goes into more negative events. So if you isolate, if you don't have visitors, people will stop inviting you. You see how that works? So let me use maybe another example there. So I'm looking for a job. Say that's one of the most depressing events on the planet. We have research for that too. Looking for a job makes you maybe feel hopeless and worthless, as if maybe nobody wants to hire me, there's not anything out there for me. What you might do might be stop applying for jobs or start complaining, there's nothing out there, there's nowhere to work, nobody wants to hire anybody with a master's degree in psychology. And then that can lead to more negative events because you're not getting any jobs if you're not. See how that works? So it's a double loop there. And it does happen with decluttering. So one of the BAT strategies is to do something positive before you feel like it. So this is action before you catch motivation. And so an example we used a second ago is exercise. If you decide to exercise, it's going to give you a little boost to those endorphins, and that's going to help you exercise a little bit more. I was talking to someone about how once I got really consistent walking a certain number of miles every day, then I began to, if I didn't get them, I haven't had them yet today, and I feel like I'm a little bit like, how to get out there. Probably not in the rain. I'll probably have to hit a treadmill today, but your body can begin to crave that. So now I don't necessarily have to say, some days I do, but today is not a day where I have to say, okay, Celeste, you've got to get yourself going. I do sort of feel like I want to do that because I know I have a streak of this many miles this week and I don't want to drop below that, or what have you. Decluttering works that way too. So if you maybe were to set a timer for 5 minutes, get to start working, you might say when the timer goes off after 5 minutes, look at what I've already done, and probably keep going. Does that feel like that sometimes happens? Yeah, you can do that with like a dreaded task. Set a 5-minute timer and just say, I only have to do it for 5 minutes on this task that I dread, that I don't want to do. That in our home education. Let me do 5 minutes of this research paper. And then sometimes we will kind of get in a swing and we can continue. And then you can feel like you've done something. That motivation of thinking better can help you continue. Another BAT strategy is to increase your contact with up. So BAT has this premise that all experiences are ups or downs. And so an up would be things that lift your mood, a down would be things that depress your mood. So we would help our clients intentionally list what helps them or harms them with decluttering. So what might be an up you can think of is maybe abstract or an up that might make someone keep decluttering. Or a down that might make you stop.
Playlist.
Yes, exactly. A good playlist for sure. A cleaning, yeah, my kids are saying Taylor Swift back there. Good cleaning playlist will help us keep going. Yeah. So up for decluttering might be listening to fun music, a race. Some people are very, very motivated by, if I set this for 30 minutes, I bet I can get this whole bathroom cleaned in 30 minutes. I've done this with unloading the dishwasher. I hate unloading the dishwasher and loading it more than anything. I think I'd rather do my taxes. And so, but then I tell myself, I can probably unload this in 90 seconds. I think I can do it. I've got a really small kitchen. I think I can, and sometimes that works. Also having a friend to chat with. We do that sometimes where it's, you put somebody on speakerphone that you like to talk with, have a friend over. Sometimes we'll say, is there somebody in your life that would just kind of non-judgmentally sit there with you while you're cleaning up? And there almost always is, because people love to join in a project, really. But some downs that make it harder to declutter would be like listening to the news. Does that not feel just like the most, like nothing's gonna get any better? Listening to the news, having your phone alerts on. You ever noticed how that will really, like all of a sudden, I've answered 60 texts that had nothing to do with anything, and I haven't done anything I needed to do today. Talking badly to yourself. I hear this from people. I can't believe that I haven't washed my sheets in 2 months. That's disgusting. No wonder nobody wants to be around me. That was actually on Instagram this week. They were asking college students how often they had changed their sheets. It was a dude. It was funny. I thought maybe the dude kids changed theirs more than another up activity in BAT is what we call mastery activity. So this is a major part where accomplishing something feels good to you. Mastering something feels good. And so some mastery activities would be playing a sport that you're good at or that you can feel good. Cleaning your kitchen counters, doesn't that just feel so refreshing? My mental health, I think, is directly related to what my kitchen counters look like. So getting those really cleaned off and feeling like I've got a nice fresh canvas. Organizing a junk drawer, because that has a beginning and an end. That's also an up mastery activity, so it increases motivation. Working for 10 minutes, like doing your little timer on a dreaded task. Getting all the trash picked up from the bedroom. If you feel like you can't do everything, you can't declutter the whole place, if you just were to start with just the trash and see how that goes. So anything that you can master, that you can accomplish, that you can finish, that will usually help you on the decluttering task. Now, let's say you had something big to do, like a basement. That's a tough one, and that's right on my mind since I've recently done that. I doubt that I'm going to get to the point where I say, my mastery activity is I'm going to have this whole thing done, by the end of this afternoon. That's probably not going to help. But if I were to get my kitchen counter cleaned, maybe, and say like, okay, look what I've done. This feels really good. I'm just going to go downstairs and see what's down there. See if I can pick up the trash or see if I can work on it for 30 So this all kind of comes back to that BAT strategy of doing something positive before you feel like it. You can't wait to declutter usually until you get excited about it or want to do it. You know, that's sometimes the only time I was ready to clean out my desk is if I was leaving that job. So that's relatable, I get. But so acting before the motivation. So just some tips that we always get at the office is do one thing at a time and start really. So for to have like your car has to be decluttered. It's a lot to think about, especially if the weather's really, really hot or the weather's. Get in there, get a trash bag, you know, wipe everything down, get stuff out of the car seat and the booster seat. We've just come out of that phase at our house. And, trying to vacuum and then hand wash, and then where did we keep the squeegee and who has that rag? And my husband is the worst because the garden hose is not, you know, attached to the thing. But just giving ourselves a permission to just start really small. If I can just take like a rag out to my car really quick and just wipe down the dash, then maybe I start to feel better about going. Anticipating setbacks. Most people don't anticipate setbacks. Do you see that with people you work with and with students? They don't realize there are going to be times that it's just not going to go great. So if you can anticipate that ahead of time, that there will be some small setbacks as I'm trying to declutter or tackle another task. That helps you when it happens to not feel so down in the dumps. We actually do that with addictions too. We talk with folks in our office that come in to talk about, you know, maybe they're trying to get sober, and we will say, even if it's anxiety, if it's depression, a lot of different things, we'll say there are going to be times when this is not going to go very well. And so let's just be aware. You're not going to do perfectly probably the rest of your life on every single thing. Using timers, reminders, alarms, do not disturb on your phone, and especially with some of those Apple updates, now you can set a do not disturb to exactly what you want it to be. So I have one that says like at home, and it's I need to turn everything off. I'll check in at work, you know, X number of times, but while I'm at home, I've got to be kind of not catching the group me about the play practice that's happening 30 times a day for middle schoolers. I don't need to hear all that. Talk nicely to yourself, speak nicely to yourself. And so a way to do that is to say, what I just said in my head, would I say that to my best friend? I heard people say, would I say that to a 7-year-old? And you know, she's 7. And I think, never ever say, you're so awful, why do you know, but I will sometimes say that. And you can say it out loud. I've said out loud before things that I've had as a thought that, no, I'm not the dumbest person in the world. There's got to be somebody else. I did something dumb right now, but I'm not the absolute worst. And then enlisting a friend can be another way. We call that body doubling, where if you were to need to tackle a big project and you have a friend that can come alongside you a lot of work, better doing that. I'm kind of known to do my clinical notes at the public library or here because I feel like other people around me are working, and it says to me, okay, it's time to work. I don't have to be, you know, kind of locked in my Then I'm going to just share a couple little tools that we use. Who knows about Goblin tools? Anybody? Goblin tools is kind of cool, and it's really good for your students too. And it's better on the web than it is their app. So Goblin tools, you can pay for a paid version. You don't have to. You can use the free one, and they have an app, but they also have a desktop site. And in the desktop site, Goblin tools will break any list down into small steps or any task. So it's AI, so you can type in there, I need to finish my tax preparation documents. You can tell how much that's on my mind. I need to finish that today. And it will give you just real quick a list of steps. And you can even break it down and say, I need like a lot more, you know, help. I need it to be much smaller tasks. But that one has been really, really good for us to use with especially clients of all ages. We use it a lot with students because they just don't have that practice yet, breaking some big tasks into smaller things. But you can, you know, anybody can use it. And it's a really feature where you can put in like, text this. How should I say that? And another one we use for our clients, put in a text someone else sent you. Say, how should I interpret this? And it's you know, it's not perfect, but it helps our clients that are not neurotypical be able to put in and say, I just feel way that this person said it, and the goblin tools will say, it could be this person was busy, you texted them, or perhaps when you didn't give a greeting to this person and just texted them, I need that so-and-so back, they may have not, received that well. It's a neat tool. There's like 6 or 8 little different tools that you can use with it. It's all free, but it's another one is that we use the How We Feel app at our office religiously now. How We Feel is it monitors your emotions, and the way it does it is it breaks them down into happy, sad, afraid, angry, bubbles, red, orange, yellow, and blue. And then if you tap on, say, afraid, it would give you like 30 options of what you really feel like. Do I feel nervous? Do I feel apprehensive? Do I feel terrified? Do I feel overwhelmed? And you can kind of choose what that is. And it serves a couple purposes. It can help you see your up and down activities, because if you're like, every single day at 6 o'clock, I'm like angry. I can't, and you think, okay, what's going on every single day at 6? Well, maybe, the dog is barking, I'm trying to make dinner, I'm getting 100 phone calls, there's, thinking of everything that has to be done tomorrow. It's really, really good for that. And then it also has some built-in tools. If you're saying I'm feeling really overwhelmed, they have some videos you can just click on and watch really quick in about 30 minutes. So, but it's really good. We use it therapist in the office. We give it to them. That's another good. So then I always, of course, just want to put in there, if someone is if decluttering is maybe a symptom of a deeper problem, we want to know what that is. So when to seek help, or when to seek help for a loved one, would be if something like cluttering or the state of their home, office, car is inhibiting their ability to live their daily life. So I read about a woman that her mom, her home just became so full of garbage, like literal garbage, that you just had to pick your way over it, and she ultimately fell and broke a hip from trying to crawl over all that stuff. So that would be a definite sign that there's a little bit more going on, probably emotionally. If you feel down, unmotivated, guilty, those days, more than 2 weeks, for more than a 2-week period, that's a good time to kind of check in, get some help, see if there might be somebody, talk to a therapist, talk to a friend. Use the How We Feel app. Kind of 2 weeks of a lot of bad days is kind of a hallmark for us to know. And then especially if you were saying against something, no hope for living, nothing's ever going to get any better, that would be another warning sign of maybe lesser or doctor. So yeah, this is our contact info again. What questions can I answer? Comments or thoughts? I didn't bring the clear plastic bins today and, break out how you're going to do that. I'm kind of going more from an emotional standpoint. So what do you tell somebody? I would say this too. Before you leave my office today, what's the thing that you're remembering that's rolling around in your mind that you're telling somebody else or telling yourself? What did we catch?
I'm gonna check out those goblin tools.
Yeah, that's a fun one. Yeah. Tell me what to do next.
Yeah, that sounds great. Can you describe a little bit, or I guess defining, there's clutter, just a lack of organization and clutter, but then like your last slide or next to last slide kind of reminded me more of hoarding.
Yes, yeah. So we can see there is a big difference. So hoarding is a disorder, an emotional health disorder. Hoarding is not, but it tends to come from an emotional, a thought, an intrusive thought that says, I have to have this, or I need to have this, or I have to. So I have a family member that's deceased now that struggled with hoarding. And, in the 80s, it was really easy to just be like, they're so dirty, why don't they, but it really was, he'd been to Vietnam and had really struggled emotionally with some very frightening incidents in where he was sleeping, where he was eating. And so that, I think, led to a lot of that. I need to save every single newspaper that I've ever gotten because I might need to use that to roll it up and eat out of it or something like that, you know. There's an amazing book called, I can see the cover of it, called Sorted. I can find it, Sorted. It's black and it has stacks of things on the front of it, but it talks about and gives some really fascinating examples, even if you're not in the psychology field, of how that type hoarding can happen. So one that was fascinating I read about was woman who had, that she would put her dirty dishes in one side of her sink, and then she wanted the clean one clean all the time. That was the one that had to stay clean. So she would put dirty dishes until she sort of ran out of dishes. And it was like, well, I can't put the dirty ones in the clean side because then they wouldn't be clean. Which sounds kind of silly because you're like, well, what about? But that's what makes it a compulsion or intrusive thought, that you just cannot let go of the idea that, and then she got to the point where she couldn't touch it anymore because then it was so dirty she couldn't, you know, then because her hands would be dirty, or then the soap would be dirty, or the counter would be dirty if she moved some of these over. And so that is when it becomes more like a hoarding type situation. And in general, that starts with anxiety, sort of telling you, I need to keep this, or I need to use this, or I need to have this. And that really is beyond like just, I like to keep junk. I've also seen dementia patients do that, interestingly enough. And I think it's just like they kind of forget what they have when a dementia patient is still a little bit more active. Then it's like, well, no, I just went again to Publix and got another, you know, crate of Campbell's chicken noodle soup. And then you're going, but you've got, it's waist high in here, stacked up. How did you? And so kind of the forgetting or the not being able to really compute, this is how much soup, you know, I could eat today. Yeah, so that is when it starts to look clinical, and we will sometimes see substance abuse, you know, that or sometimes just that as a way to medicate themselves from the feelings of fear and hopeless trouble. But that book is fascinating. Yes, sir.
Well, one thing you brought a sense of awareness. You know, I could probably be experiencing some of these things you mentioned and don't even know it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm just too busy to
Yeah, totally.
plow through and don't even think about it, you know.
I know.
And I'm thinking physiologically there could be havoc going on.
Yeah, totally. And you know, we understand that now about 90% of emergency room visits are actually due to anxiety. Now, I hate when doctors just tell women, like, it's your nerves, you know, like that drives me insane. But I can't tell you the number of people that have said, I was having a heart attack, or I fainted, or I had this, and then we can look at it and say, okay, or, you know, did you feel anxious? Do you feel like you have anxiety? No, I didn't feel anxious at all. I was just out taking a walk. And then you start to hear though, and you know, I lost a loved one recently, and I am about to, you know, my job is in jeopardy, and it's also, you know, things are really on the rocks with one of my kids. I mean, those things start to pile up and we don't realize what they are. Yeah. And everybody's internal experience feels normal to them. You don't realize that it's atypical until you sometimes let it out with somebody else. And that's where, you know, on campus, the counseling center is really good with screeners and those type things. They can really, and there are so many screeners now available online that you can just ask, you know, and it will ask you the questions. One we use a lot is the PHQ-9, Patient Health Questionnaire 9, and it just asks over the last 2 weeks, how much have you felt any of these things? And it's just like, you know, 10 questions or so, and it's very easy. And we actually just score it in our office, and we can say, okay, if it's above this, we know that that's a sign of depression, and then we can attack it from there. And then people sometimes do say, I really didn't. Happens with addictions a lot, you know. Say, well, how many beers do you have at Texas Roadhouse? And they'll say, well, 5. You have 5 5 fears of a sitting is routine for you, and they'll say, yeah. And that level of substance abuse. I mean, that's on our board for women. But people don't necessarily know that unless you kind of ask. That's why they always train us to be really careful too, that we don't start thinking that what we think is normal. You know, I'm supposed to look at research and say, okay, well maybe, you know, maybe pathological do this, or maybe it is, and I do it too, you know, and I need to. So, yeah. But, yeah, I mean, it's good to just come in and check in with your doctor, with your, you know, with loved ones, I think. I think now we're hearing a lot more about women's hormones, and if that's coming on the market a little bit more, we're hearing more about how we can talk to our doctors about this kind of mental health. We're hearing about that so much more. Talk with doctors and so on. There really just is so much that we can do that's so normal and so easy. That's when we get a lot of comments. It's really, and then sometimes we have to kind of kick people out. Okay, you can't just come in here and chat forever. It's been good knowing you, but you got this now, you know. Yeah.
Can you speak to how clearing a space, closet or whatever, the connection to how that makes you feel better mentally?
Yeah, I think that clutter to us, we don't usually tend to look at it neutrally and just think, oh, pile of papers on the table, no big deal. We tend to go to a mental state with it, even if we're not using it, and it weighs on us kind of heavily just knowing that it's there. Another book, and I can see the cover, but I can't think of the name of it. It's yellow with a light bulb. You can tell I'm a visual learner. And he really brought out how our brain is meant for having ideas, not for ideas. Think about that. Your brain is meant for having ideas, not ideas. So having ideas, my brain is meant to tell me, oh, I'm stuck in this traffic and I got to figure out what would be the best way to get across the bridge, even though there's road work, and make it over back to home in time. That's or deep philosophical things. You know, my brain is meant for having ideas, but when we have clutter, we are holding things. So you're holding, I've got to pay that copay and send that back to that doctor. I've got to pay the homeowners association fees. I've got to be sure that I call my neighbor or whatever. And so that holding, it's like if I were to tell you, I'm going to give you 8 numbers and you need to memorize those and tell them back to me. You could do that. Some of you could probably do 9, some of you could probably do 8, probably do 3. But there's going to become a point where your mind won't hold anymore. Right? So that's really what I think the cluttering issue is about. That your mind and your brain just can't hold that much stuff. And I think of it too like had a vacation property. Maybe some of you do. But the reason I've never had a vacation property, aside from finances, is that I think I would just be thinking about it in the back of my mind all the time. I hope the smoke detectors are working. I wonder if I needed to do this. I hope there's enough towels when we go down there. So just the amount of stuff that you own even does weigh on you. But if you ever listen to the minimalist guys, now they can go like super extreme. But I like Josh Decker a lot. He has several books on minimalism, and one of the ones that was like life-changing for me, I guess, was why do you have a whole bunch of pens in a pen cup? I saw so many faces, and I'll just be like,
Oh, man.
why do you have a whole cup of pens? And he said, how many pens can you use at a time? I only have one hand, so I guess just one. And guys, I'm not joking. I got rid of all the cup holder, all those things, pens. They're in a drawer in a box. Like if I needed a pen, I could get it. But I'm like pen, pencil, highlighter, Sharpie in a drawer and one pen on my desk. And when I say the amount of mental clarity that I feel like came from that, and now I can't stand to see pens. That's the one. Just need one. Yeah. Isn't that funny?
Well, I have a drawer that we won't open it.
We all have one. Yeah. And I think that in one of Gretchen Rubin's books, she even talked about a friend that she has that keeps one empty shelf or one empty drawer, because the idea is just, I do have one place that's empty. If I needed to put something there, I could, but it feels really good to know that I cleared that one spot. That's kind of an interesting idea. And I'll say, I'm kind of a ruthless declutterer. We have an 80s birthday party we're going to after this, and my decluttering, I wasn't holding on to anything from the 80s, so we have, so occasionally we don't have what we need if you're kind of a ruthless declutter. I've probably bought a broom, 4 times in the last 25 years, because I'm like, you don't need a broom, we have a vacuum cleaner. So I would say, even though I'm kind of ruthless in that, I haven't run into any situation where it was like life altering that I couldn't get a broom if I needed one. So, I say to my husband a lot, if you could easily replace it, if you needed to, it's just kind of not worth even keeping. But sometimes we hold on to in our mind, either I need this so much, because what about that one time that somebody's dog barked in their trunk and we needed this Bissell cleaning machine, and even though we have hardwood, no, I probably don't need it. And there's another psychological principle. Gosh, I'm horrible with names. This one doesn't have a color. I'll have to look it up. There's another psychological principle that something that you have, that you feel like it is more valuable than something you don't have. So we're going through this a little bit at my house right now with some hunting equipment that that we haven't used in several years. That is causing some emotional angst about, I paid so much for this, haven't gotten to use it. This is bringing up a lot of feelings. And then, one of us says, well, why not just let that go and sell that to somebody? Well, I would want to price it at, $1,000. I say, well, saw that thing on the yard sale for $1,000. Would you pay $1,000 for it? And we tend to value. There's so many studies where they give people a prize and they can't give it back, even though there's like a giant prize on the other side of door number 1. But it's like, no, I got this. Even a stress ball, and it's mine, and I can't let go of it. Super fascinating. So kind of asking yourself, am I holding on to this because I think that either I could never get it back, or it would be horrible if I got rid of all my chicken noodle soup and I couldn't get back to Publix and get some more, or because someday never come. Hey, there may never be a Sunday that you need 60 cans. Probably that won't happen, guys. And then that principle of thinking, just because I already own it, I tend to kind of value this more than sold a car. Oh no, this car is worth at least, and never mind that it's totally trashed. Driven kids around in it for, yeah. What else?
Come back to the hoarding concept. How do you deal with someone here like is maybe a hoarder?
Yeah.
Break
So,
Not naming any names.
not naming any names. That is really a hard one, because we do get a lot of calls of people saying, how can I get so-and-so to get help? Like, I don't need anything for me, but, my mom is horrible, and it's so
You
hard.
send them in, you write, you
Yeah,
they
drop
come on
them
that show, Hoarding
Yeah.
Buried Alive.
Yeah, I can't touch that. Oh, no, me neither. I can't. I know, I watch it and I'm like, I cannot. In that book I'm referencing, there were these 2 brothers that were literally buried alive in New York City. And they dug out. It was terrifying. So I think, it's always tricky to get somebody else to change. We want to see if we can change ourselves, and that makes a difference. Sometimes there may be somebody in your life and you're like, I really would love to, bring the grandkids over there, but I'm just kind of afraid of all the dog food in the floor, or like, I need to, so I just feel like you should come to my house, or I feel like we should go to a park, or this. Sometimes you can change that. Motivational interviewing is a therapy technique we use where if I get you to talk, it's for like alcohol and drug use. So if I were to say, I really think you need to stop drinking, then your tendency is going to be to say, these are all the reasons that I don't need to stop. These are all the reasons I need to keep my clutter, right? And so you're talking yourself out of it. You're always gonna believe you more than you're gonna believe me. That's funny, because you think your own brain is normal, and I think mine is normal. So, instead of setting someone up where they're just thinking about, no, I've got to dig in here and double board now, you try to get them talking about the positives of getting the help for that. So with alcoholism, just as another example, we might say, what would be better in your life if you did stop drinking? Or we might say, how do you think your spouse would respond if you drink less? And then they start kind of talking about those things. So it's not to trick somebody, it is just to help them see what would be the benefits. Yeah, like what would be so in our hunting equipment discussion, kind of, I feel like the point is, well, you're super into fly fishing now and do that regularly. Side note, the equipment is much smaller, much easier to use. So what if you were to sell some of this hunting equipment and you could then buy some nice fishing equipment? Or what if you said, maybe instead of keeping this equipment, I'm just going to go all in and like get myself a really nice hunting trip out in Montana, one of those giant elk, and do that and make it an adventure, So sometimes you can talk to people about what would you, how would your life benefit? How would things improve? What could you instead that kind of scratches that same itch? Tough one. It's that old joke, right? How many psychologists does it take to screw in a light bulb? Just one, but the light bulb has to want to change. Right. So that's it. We're always trying to get that light bulb to change. What else?
I have a hard time if someone gave it to me,
Yes.
especially if they passed away, and I don't know if it's guilt or sin.
Yeah, that's a
Yes.
good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is one that comes up a lot. I had a woman a few days ago that's a friend, not a client, but I was dropping off some at her house. She has 4 little kids. And she had this big table that was taking up a chunk of her house. It's a really small house. And she said, I feel really bad. My sister gave me this. She made it for me, and I want to, And I said, well, do you think your sister wants you to keep something that was in her house? Yes, And so sometimes I think back to that, like, would my great-grandmother want me to keep sometimes things that people pass down to you, they do because they don't want it. They want to get rid of it. They want to keep it. They want you to keep it. We can't all keep everything forever. Or I would have like George Washington's whatever at my house, or like we would pass it down forever. Sometimes it, and you do things like photos. I do. I'm kind of big on handwriting, so I have a sample of handwriting from all of the grandparents. But for my own journals, I just scanned those in. I thought I'll probably want to see those at some point, so I just photographed those and said, okay, I can shred these or whatever at this point. And then I wasn't moving house to house with like a stack of journals since I was 16 or whatever. So sometimes a picture can solve that. Sometimes asking yourself, why did this person give it to me? And then just the loved ones. I said too, my father-in-law is so like just my best friend, and he's always given me some instructions about what to do as they get older. And one of the instructions, he said, don't keep anything unless you want it. You feel free to get rid of all my stuff and just throw it away if you want to, And I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to tell these people back here. You don't have to save any of my stuff. I'm going to be gone, So just thinking
That's
about
awesome. That's awesome.
that. Yeah.
I mean, I'm dealing with having lost parents and,
Yes.
and because first my dad passed before my mother, and having to clean out a house where they lived for 46 years and kept
Right.
everything.
Yes.
It felt like they kept everything.
Yes.
They weren't hoarders or
Yes.
anything. But it forces you to, I only have so much space.
Yes.
And then after having my mother move in with me and then now going through her, it's really difficult. What do I keep? What do I not? But I have to keep asking myself, why would I want to keep
Right.
this? And there are certain things that I do want to keep, but I know that I can't keep everything and kind of prioritizing,
Yeah.
what has the most emotional sentiment to me and letting the other things go. And letting some of the other things go. It has been freeing.
Well, I'll tell one of my sister that she thought she had this note from me that was really meaningful to her. This happened a few days ago. And she was like unfolding it to give me a text. It wasn't for me, it was from an old boyfriend. And she was like, I can't believe I killed this. This was a note from you. I was like getting rid of it.
Oh,
I said,
no.
well, you don't have to answer to me, answer your husband. So sometimes we will begin to think as time goes by that we don't feel the need to hold on to stuff as much for certain reasons. And then also when you have a child leaving home, or you have a parent entering your home or moving into a care home of some type, it can feel like you are giving away a piece of them or a piece of their independence, or with children that you're giving away that they might come back and living with you under your roof again. And so we do kind of just have to psychologically back that and say, I'm not gonna, when I had been married almost 20 years, my parents got a divorce out of their home in 40 years. And, I was going like, I don't know what you guys have in mind, but just go ahead and chunk it. If I haven't needed it in 20 years, you guys go ahead and let it go. So, yeah, the psychological meaning behind, I can find psychological.
Yeah, and I read somewhere too, it was a grief book, that just because it may have been important to your loved one doesn't mean it's necessarily important to you.
Exactly. That's a really good point. That's a really good point. Because they can't use it anymore.
They can't use it anymore, so, you really think about, so.
And sometimes you do hear about somebody that's like, I've kept my antique roadshow. There's always somebody going on there like, this is my great-great-grandmother's prized jewelry. And then they'll look at it and be like, well, this came from, the 5 and dime. It's worth about 60 cents.
Yeah.
It's so sometimes we think things are a little more valuable passed down than they are. And if you love it and it's something that you do know that you would miss, then keep it. But sometimes you have a question. Oh, and one that I used a lot during my move is, if this had dog poop on it, would I clean it? Do I love it enough to clean it? And that's kind of like, I don't know. I don't think I would
That's a
clean
good one.
dog poop off this. And then that's your key to, maybe I need to donate it, So, yeah. Any little psychological trick we can use.
That's a good one.
Anything else? I know you guys are probably getting close on your time.
Great questions. Do we have anything from the virtual? Okay.
Thank you all so much. So nice to hear from you guys and see you today. And we've got cards for Caitlin and Ashley here. If you want one or want to take one with you to someone, that's fine.
All right, well, thank you so much. Then, Natalie's passing out the survey for you, and next week is EAP. EAP, okay. All right, so we will be, where will we be? In here again, SBA Chambers. So we've got a Blue Cross rep and one of our HR reps that's going to be here talking about the assistance program and other, like what Celeste mentioned, talking about our psychiatric benefits, our mental health benefits, things like that, because we really do have a great plan, we do. And we've got some goodies for you, and one is, there's a t-shirt in here and some other little cute goodies, but it's our signature t-shirt of Mental Health Matters.
Oh, love it. I don't have a mental health shirt.
Yes, that's great.
Yeah.
So thank you, we really appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
Absolutely.
Always. It's so
All
nice
right.
to see you all.
Thank you all, and we'll see you next week. Hey, and if you haven't had your Dexy yet, we're still taking appointments. All right, thank y'all.